Hola, hola. It is Renee with Adelante Spanish for All. Yesterday was our last day of the 28-day Family Language Learning Challenge. Yay! So, we're here to do a wrap up and just kind of find out how did it go, some things that we might want to talk about. So, some of the questions I have are how do you feel about your successes? What will you do about the setbacks? Where did you find support? As well as how will you continue on? And I do know that doing this challenge was as much for me as it was to give support to any of you that were following along with the challenge. And so there were a few things that I had found out. Um, One of them is I found support um, in an unexpected place, actually. So I wanted to talk about that today. So we have we have some successes, we have some setbacks. So some of the successes for us, personally, I feel like my daughter, she's 8.5, and I feel that she was really a little bit more motivated to speak a little bit more Mandarin, even though she did get a little bit tired of listening to one of our Chinese shows, and so I was able to find another Chinese show that we really liked. It was My Little Pony, which we've seen a billion times in English and Spanish. So I was like, let's switch it over to Mandarin. So we did that. Um, but she was a little bit more receptive. Oh, hi, Aisha. How are you? That was for me. That was a success. Um, she hasn't been taking regular Mandarin classes lately. She was just taking some pronunciation classes, and so now we were really focusing kind of on pronunciation, and I can kind of hear it uh, transferring into her speech as she's trying to say a few things, and she wasn't pushing back. She really was trying to answer back more in Mandarin if I had asked her something in Mandarin. So for us, that was a success. A setback for us is I have the journal and I have a plan for like the activities and things like that. And oh, by the way, if you didn't pick up the activity list. I had a handout about a few days ago for some activity ideas for mealtime. You should pick that up. I can repost it, but it's in one of my earlier posts this week. But even though I have a plan to do it, it's probably better if I put it on a calendar, which I did provide a calendar, but I think I'm going to revise it. I don't know if it worked for any of you. You can, jump in and say, hey, it worked for me, so don't change it. But for me, I needed something a little bit more specific. So one of the questions I asked is, where did you find support? I actually found support in an unexpected place. I teach ESL online to children in China. And one of my students, well, two of the students, they're siblings. And I've been teaching them for about a year now. And so the mom and I have been able to have a few conversations after class every once in a while. And one of our conversations happened to be was how she had organized her language learning for her kids, because they're taking about 2 classes a week, but she also gives them homework. And she had this checklist, and I loved her checklist. And I found her a great support as I was trying to tell her about how I was trying to integrate Mandarin into our regular routine. And she was like, yes, and giving a few tips and some ideas. But her number one tip was, she hugged her daughter and she said, and love them, love your daughter and encourage them. And we look and we say, well, we have to do this and we have to speak this. And this is the target word, or this is the target phrase. And we have to make sure we hit this routine just like this. But her number one thing was hug them and love them and encourage them for whatever little success that they have. And that was such a big support and such a big encouragement for me, because sometimes we lose that big picture of just loving our kids into their second or third or fourth language. And that was great. That just happened a few days ago, actually, when we had that conversation. So besides her giving me tips about the checklist and some things to work on for Mandarin, because she said it is a hard language. We all know Mandarin's a hard language, but her best advice was just love and encourage your kids. So love and encourage your kids. It is about language, but it's also about the culture, and we're loving our kids into this. This is not a we're beating our kids upside the head to make them do this. We do this because we love them, and there's a higher goal, but it's all founded on love and encouragement. So I really did like that talk with that student's mom. That was very encouraging for me. And how will you continue on? And you can jump in at any time. How will you continue on? So how I will continue on, going, I decided that I do want a more specific checklist. So even though I do have the calendar, I want a more specific checklist that I can hang up on the wall. And it's something that I've done before with other types of um, work. For example, she has violin lessons, and I've had charts for violin practice and things like that. And I find that that works for us. So even though I have a calendar for the general idea and, to pencil in or pen in some activities and stuff, having a daily checklist is really going to help us. So once I come across a checklist, you guys get to benefit, because I'm probably going to post it on the page free for you guys, okay? Um, so that's how I'm going to continue. I really do want to have that checklist. I think that's going to help us maintain that consistency. Um, so that's for us. That's how I'm going to continue, because even though this is a 28-day challenge, this 28 days is just a beginning. It doesn't end here. This is a long-term commitment that we want to do. So did you guys have any successes, any setbacks that you wanted to talk about, or maybe some unexpected support, or maybe some tips on what worked for you during this 28-day challenge? How you plan on continuing? You can, type a message, and we'll continue on. I'll also continue to post some tips and some encouragement on this page, whether it's a meme or some other words of encouragement or some other information that I find for everyone. Remember, this is for any language. It's not just for Spanish. As I say, we're bilingual English Spanish, but we did the challenge in Mandarin. Spanish is something that's used daily on a daily basis. So we didn't use the challenge for Spanish. We did it for Mandarin. I think the second part of this challenge, when we get to it, if any of you are planning on doing more than one language, I would really like to start talking about that. That's okay, Aisha. It'll come around again. It'll definitely come around again. The challenge came out of this book that I wrote about the 28 Days to Family Language Learning, and it teaches how to integrate language into your daily routine. And that's what the challenge was about. How can you integrate it into your daily routine? And I had integrated Mandarin into our morning time. It was Mandarin morning. We integrated into just breakfast time. Okay, in Italian and French. Okay, and like I said, I think later on down the line, I am going to do a second challenge. That second challenge will have to do with integrating another language, because I do have a lot of multilingual followers on this page. Okay. One thing I will say right up front is, if you're doing more than one language, that second language or the third language, how many you do, should be completely separate routines. So the routine that I gave an example of in the book and what we use in our home for Mandarin is breakfast time. It's just breakfast. And it's part of the larger goal of doing mealtime. One thing that I mentioned, Aisha, in the book, here's a mealtime dialogue. There's actually more than four, but in the book, I give four separate different, four, I'm saying the same word in like 2 or 3 different ways. There are four separate areas of mealtime that you could actually focus on. Just focus on one of those areas. So for us, our Mandarin morning focused on breakfast, but it wasn't all of breakfast. It was just speaking about what foods we wanted to eat. I learned some things about how to say, are you full or do you want some more? So I learned a little bit more so we can continue that particular conversation. So, for example, Aisha, if you decide to do, let's say, Italian, I don't know which language you know more, but if you decide to do Italian and you say breakfast time, and you're going to focus on breakfast time, if you want to do French as well, choose a completely different routine. So, for example, it might be your getting up routine. You wake up, you get dressed, you make your bed, you wash your face, you brush your teeth, different things like that, that's completely separate and away from talking about mealtime. Or maybe, or bedtime, for example, or going to school, getting your books ready. Let's talk about what class are you taking or what subjects are you taking that day. Okay, so that would be a completely different routine. Um, and that's advice that I've heard, and that's just advice that I found helpful for our family personally. It's worked out really well that way. Okay, so when we do the next part of our challenge, it probably won't be until the fall, and it will be adding another language and trying to add another routine. But in the meantime, continue the one routine that you're doing. We're going to continue right now our Mandarin morning and just try to expand on it. And remembering to do that every single day and adding on, building on to that particular conversation. Part of our Mandarin morning now, besides her taking Mandarin classes, which she does once a week, we started character writing because she has a little workbook, and there was something else I can't remember right off the top of my head, but this is the reason why I said I need a checklist, because each day I do want to focus on different things. She needs to focus. She's practicing tones and she's practicing sounds. So remember all that input. I've spoken about how much input we need as far as listening to the language. I say a bare minimum 10 hours. It really should be about 20 hours of exposure to the language. Exposure can be reading, any type of listening, whether it's a show, a song, the news, whatever, but being exposed to the sounds of that language for the minimum 10 hours a week is very, very important. So when you add on a language, keep that in mind, that exposure, is it going to be split? Are you going to add another 10 hours in another language? How are you going to balance that? So that's something we're going to talk about a little bit further in the future. So, but yeah, that's how our challenge went. I do plan on continuing and moving on so that when I add another language, oh my goodness, guys, you're not going to believe this. Talk about adding a language. Okay, when both of my daughters are young, I introduced Japanese and German to them because they were languages I was exposed to when I was younger, mostly when I was a teen. But I lived in Germany for a couple of years, and then later on, in my early 20s, I was exposed to Japanese. Excuse me. So when my kids are little, I expose it to them as much as I can because I knew a few words, maybe some counting, maybe some songs, things like that. Well, my youngest daughter, the 8.5-year-old, we had a neighbor who was German, and he would speak German to her. And because I told him, I said, anytime you speak to her, just speak to her in German. So he would do that, and she really, she got into it. But then he moved away. About 4 years ago, he moved away. So we got away from German. I started trying to pick it back up, and the routine was our getting up routine, and then that fell away. This was before my whole 28-day integrated completely into your routine thing. It fell away. Well, this child during this 28-day challenge says, "Mom, I really kind of miss German." I'm going, "Really? Really?" Okay, so I guess so I guess that means that when we do our challenge again and add on a language, I guess that just might be German. So I might need to brush up on that a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm like, honey, you still realize you're still studying Chinese, and you do realize that you still have to do your native languages, English and Spanish. You realize this, right? So that's going to be a balancing act. So you're going to see me run around like a chicken with the head cut off trying to balance all this because I've never gone this far as balancing a whole lot of different languages. So that's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be a very fun challenge. I hope you come on that challenge with me because, guys, without you, I don't know if I would have made it just through the 28 days. Guys, it's hard. It's hard. So, but I'm glad that you guys were around and I had someone that had you guys to bounce ideas off of and to talk to, and it's been fun. Keep on keeping on. I will still continue to post little different things to help you continue on that journey, and stay in tune for a second challenge in the fall. But even before then, I have another surprise, another book coming out for you guys. So stay tuned to the channel, and I will catch you later. Ciao.